Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching something that made his blood run cold. Through the wide viewing screen, he could see the Proxima station burning. The research station where humans and Kalari had worked together for 5 years was now nothing but twisted metal and fire. "Sir, we're getting the last transmission from the station," Captain Lisa Hayes said from her position at the communications console. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. The static-filled voice of Dr. Alex Turner crackled through the speakers. "This is Proxima Station. They came without warning. The Kalari ships. They're destroying everything." There was a pause filled with the sound of explosions. "They took all our research files. They know about Project Lighthouse. Tell Earth. Tell them we trusted the wrong people." The transmission cut to dead silence. Jake stared at the burning station, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The Kalari had been humanity's allies for 23 years. They were the ones who first contacted Earth, who taught humans how to travel between stars, who helped them build colonies on distant worlds. Now those same aliens were destroying everything humans had built with them. "Captain Hayes, get me a direct line to Earth Command," Jake ordered. His hands were shaking slightly as he gripped the rail in front of him. "Already working on it, sir," Lisa replied. Connection established. The face of General Mike Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. The general looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. "Jake, please tell me you have good news." "I'm afraid not, sir. Proxima Station is gone, complete destruction." Dr. Turner confirmed that the Kalari took all our research data before they attacked. General Rodriguez closed his eyes for a moment. "It's worse than we thought, Jake. They didn't just hit Proxima Station. 3 of our frontier colonies are gone. New Texas, Haven, and Riverside. Over 50,000 people, Jake. All dead." Jake felt the words hit him like a physical blow. Those colonies were home to families, scientists, farmers, and engineers who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. Children who had been born on those worlds would never see another sunrise. "How is that possible?" Jake asked. "Our defense systems should have given them warning." "The Kalari knew exactly where to hit and when," Rodriguez explained. "They had access to our defense schedules, our patrol routes, everything. This wasn't a sudden attack, Jake. They planned this for years." On Earth, President Kate Williams was having the worst day of her presidency. She sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House, surrounded by the most important people in the human government. The news kept getting worse with each report. "Madam President," said Commander Sam Parker, the head of intelligence services, "we've discovered that the Kalari ambassador and his entire staff disappeared from the embassy 6 hours ago. They're gone." "Gone how?" President Williams asked. "They had a ship waiting. Left Earth's atmosphere before we even knew about the attacks. But that's not the worst part." Sam activated a holographic display showing data files. "We found evidence that they've been copying our computer systems for months. Military plans, technology blueprints, research data. They've been stealing our secrets." Dr. Rachel Brooks, the head of Earth's science division, leaned forward in her chair. "They didn't just steal random information. They were very specific about what they took. All our advanced physics research, our weapons development, our space travel technology. They knew exactly what to look for." President Williams felt a cold anger building inside her. "So they've been planning this betrayal for how long?" "At least 2 years, maybe longer," Sam replied. "The Kalari ambassador had access to almost everything. We trusted them completely. And now they have all our secrets," General Rodriguez added via video link. "They know our weaknesses, our capabilities, our plans. They've turned our own openness against us." President Williams stood up and walked to the window that showed the city above. Millions of people were going about their normal lives, not knowing that humanity had just lost its only allies in the galaxy. Not knowing that they were now alone in a universe that had suddenly become very dangerous. "What do we know about why they did this?" she asked. "Nothing concrete," Sam admitted. "But our intelligence suggests they might be afraid of something. There have been reports of ships disappearing near the outer rim of the galaxy. Some kind of threat that has the Kalari scared. So they decided to eliminate us before we could become a problem," Dr. Brooks said quietly. Or they needed our technology to fight whatever is out there, General Rodriguez suggested. Maybe they thought it was easier to steal from us than ask for help. President Williams turned back to face the room. Either way, they've made their choice. They've killed our people and stolen our secrets. The question now is, what do we do about it? The room fell silent. Everyone knew that humanity was vastly outnumbered by the Kalari. The aliens had been traveling between stars for thousands of years while humans had only been in space for a few decades. In a direct fight, humanity would lose. But as President Williams looked around the room, she saw something in the faces of her advisors that gave her hope. They weren't showing fear or despair. Instead, she saw determination and anger. The Kalari had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humanity that the universe was not a safe place, that trusting others could lead to betrayal and death. We need to assume that everything they stole was compromised, President Williams said finally. Every plan, every technology, every secret. We start over from scratch. Madam President, Dr. Brooks said carefully, there might be some things they don't know about. Some projects that were kept separate, more classified than anything they had access to. President Williams looked at her science advisor with new interest. What kind of projects? The kind that we've been working on in case something like this ever happened, Dr. Brooks replied. We may have trusted the Kalari, but we never forgot that humans have to look out for themselves first. As the meeting continued, none of them knew that their conversations were being recorded by hidden systems that the Kalari had never discovered. None of them knew that humanity's real secrets were still safe, hidden in places that even the most trusted allies had never been allowed to see. The Kalari thought they had crippled humanity by stealing their technology and destroying their colonies. They thought they had eliminated a potential threat before it could grow dangerous. They were about to learn that they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. Humanity had other plans. 3 months had passed since the Kalari betrayal. The funerals were over, the memorial services complete, but the anger in humanity's heart burned brighter than ever. President Kate Williams walked through the underground corridors beneath the Rocky Mountains, heading to a meeting that would change everything. The Prometheus Institute had been built in secret 20 years ago, carved deep into solid rock where no alien sensors could detect it. Dr. Rachel Brooks waited for the president, in a room that officially did not exist. On the walls were blueprints and designs that would have shocked the Kalari if they had ever seen them. Show me what they don't know, President Williams said without any greeting. She had no time for politeness anymore. Dr. Brooks activated a holographic display that filled the room with images of advanced spacecraft, weapons, and technologies that looked nothing like anything humanity had ever shown to the Kalari. Everything they stole from us was at least 10 years out of date. We've been preparing for this day since we first met them. Preparing for what day? The president asked. The day our allies decided to become our enemies, Dr. Brooks replied. We hoped it would never come, but we weren't stupid enough to believe it never could. The first image showed a sleek black ship that seemed to bend light around itself. This is the UES Shadow, our first stealth warship. It uses quantum field manipulation to become completely invisible to any sensors the Kalari have. We've built 50 of them. President Williams stared at the ship. 50? How did we hide 50 warships? We built them in the asteroid belt, inside hollowed-out rocks. The Kalari never thought to look there because we told them we were just mining operations. Dr. Brooks smiled grimly. We've been very good at looking harmless while preparing for war. The next image showed a massive space station orbiting Jupiter. Europa Base. The Kalari think it's a research facility studying ice formation. Actually, it's our primary military shipyard. We've been building a fleet there for 15 years. What kind of fleet? The kind that can take on the entire Kalari armada and win, Dr. Brooks replied. But that's not even our best secret. The hologram changed to show something that made the president's eyes widen. It was a human soldier, but something was different about him. His eyes glowed with a faint blue light, and objects around him were floating in the air without being touched. Meet Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor, one of our first success stories, Dr. Brooks explained. The Kalari have natural telepathic abilities that they've used to stay ahead of other species for thousands of years. We don't have those abilities, naturally, so we created them artificially. You gave humans psychic powers. We call them psionic enhancements. Brain implants that allow humans to read minds, move objects with thought, and even influence the behavior of others. The Kalari's natural abilities are strong, but our artificial ones are stronger. President Williams was beginning to understand the scope of what had been hidden from the world. How many enhanced humans do we have? 5,000 fully trained operatives, with more being enhanced every day. They've been infiltrating Kalari space for years, learning their secrets, mapping their defenses. The Kalari never detected them because they didn't know to look for artificially enhanced minds. Dr. Brooks brought up another display showing a star map filled with blinking dots. Each of these dots represents a human operative in Kalari territory. They've been watching, waiting, gathering intelligence. We know where every Kalari military base is located, how many ships they have, and what their weaknesses are. And they know none of this? Nothing. To them, we're still the primitive species they met 23 years ago. They think our technology is limited to what we showed them in our joint projects. Colonel Danny Clark entered the room at that moment. He was a tall man with cold eyes who had spent his career preparing for humanity's darkest possibilities. Madam President, we need to show you the rest. They walked deeper into the facility, past laboratories where scientists worked on projects that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations of humans. In one room, engineers were testing weapons that fired concentrated gravity waves. In another, programmers were creating artificial intelligences that could think faster than any biological brain. The Kalari made one critical mistake, Colonel Clark explained as they walked. They assumed that humans are like every other species they've encountered, trusting, open, willing to share everything. They never considered that we might be paranoid enough to keep our best secrets hidden. They entered a chamber where Chief Engineer Tony Martinez was overseeing the construction of something that looked like a miniature star. This is our new power source, he explained. Controlled micro-black holes. Each one can power a city, or a battleship that can destroy planets. President Williams realized that she was looking at technology that surpassed anything the Kalari had ever developed. How long have we been working on this? Since the day we met them, Tony replied. We started with their basic physics lessons and kept going. While they thought they were teaching us, we were learning to surpass them. Colonel Clark led them to a final room where maps of the galaxy covered every wall. Red marks showed Kalari territories, blue marks showed human positions, and green marks showed something else entirely. What are the green marks? President Williams asked. Other species that the Kalari have befriended over the years, Colonel Clark replied. We've been in secret contact with several of them. Turns out, we're not the first species the Kalari have betrayed. They have a pattern of making friends, stealing technology, then eliminating potential threats. Dr. Emma Foster joined them, carrying a tablet filled with data. She was young for someone in such an important position, but her eyes held the intensity of someone who had seen too much. We've discovered something else, Madam President. The Kalari didn't just betray us because they were afraid of human potential. They're running from something. Running from what? We don't know yet, but our operatives have detected massive fleet movements in the Outer Rim territories. The Kalari are pulling back their forces from the galaxy's edge, consolidating near their home systems. Something has them scared. President Williams looked around the room at all the preparations, all the secrets, all the technology that had been developed while the world believed humanity was junior partners in a galactic alliance. So they decided to steal our technology to help them fight whatever is coming. That's our best guess, Dr. Foster replied, but they made a fatal error. The technology they stole was designed to fail at crucial moments. Every blueprint, every design, every piece of code they took from us has hidden flaws that will activate when we choose. Colonel Clark pulled up a final display showing the locations of all the stolen human technology now being used by the Kalari. We can track every piece of equipment they built from our stolen plans. When the time comes, we can shut down their entire military with the push of a button. President Williams felt a cold satisfaction as she understood the full scope of humanity's preparation. The Kalari thought they had crippled humanity by stealing their secrets and destroying their colonies. Instead, they had walked into a trap that had been 20 years in the making. "How soon can we be ready to move?" she asked. "We've been ready for months," Colonel Clark replied. "We were just waiting for your orders." President Williams looked around at the faces of the people who had spent their careers preparing for this moment. They had hoped it would never come. But when it did, they were ready. "Then it's time to show the Kalari what humans do when someone hurts our people," she said. The war was about to begin, but the Kalari had no idea they had already lost. 6 months after the betrayal, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Phantom, humanity's most advanced stealth warship. Around him, the bridge hummed with quiet energy as his crew prepared for something the galaxy had never seen before. Operation Nemesis was about to begin. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Amy Rogers said from her position at the tactical station. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of leading humanity's first strike against their former allies. Jake looked at the display showing 50 human warships floating invisible in space near the Kalari military base at Rigel Prime. The Kalari had no idea they were there. Their sensors, built to detect the old human technology they had stolen, could not see the quantum-shielded ships that surrounded them. "Remember, our primary target is the command center," Jake announced to his fleet. "We need their communication systems intact so we can send our message to the rest of the galaxy. This isn't just about revenge. This is about showing everyone what happens when you betray humanity." The attack began with surgical precision. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, their weapons targeting specific systems on the Kalari base. The aliens had built their defenses to counter their stolen human technology, but these new weapons operated on completely different principles. Captain Lisa Hayes, now commanding the UES Shadow, watched as Kalari ships tried to respond to the attack. "Their weapons are malfunctioning," she reported with satisfaction. "The stolen technology is failing just like we planned." All across the base, Kalari equipment built from stolen human blueprints began to shut down. Defense turrets stopped firing, shields collapsed, and communication systems went dead. The Kalari found themselves defenseless against an enemy they could barely see. But Admiral Morrison's fleet wasn't just there to destroy military targets. Hidden among the base's structures were prison facilities where human survivors from the destroyed colonies were being held. Captain Rogers led a team of enhanced soldiers to rescue them. The rescue mission revealed something that made even the hardened soldiers sick with anger. The Kalari hadn't just imprisoned the human survivors. They had been experimenting on them, trying to understand what made humans different from other species they had encountered. They were trying to figure out why humans adapt so quickly. Dr. Foster explained later as she examined the rescued prisoners. "They couldn't understand how we developed so much technology in such a short time. They thought there was something special about human biology." Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor, leading a team of psionic-enhanced operatives, had discovered something even more disturbing in the Kalari research files. "They weren't just studying our bodies," he reported. "They were trying to copy our consciousness patterns. They wanted to understand how human minds work." Back on Earth, President Williams was receiving reports from the operation when Dr. Brooks entered with news that would change everything. "Madam President, we need to tell you about Project Afterlife." Project Afterlife. Every human who volunteered for off-world colonization received neural implants as part of their medical preparation, Dr. Brooks explained. "We told them the implants were for health monitoring and emergency communication." That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. President Williams felt a chill as she began to understand what Dr. Brooks was saying. The implants were also quantum consciousness recorders. When the colonists died, their consciousness patterns were transmitted to quantum storage systems on Earth. "They're not gone, Madam President. They're still here." "You're telling me that the dead colonists are still alive?" "In a sense, yes. Their consciousness exists in our quantum computers. They can think, communicate, and even help us plan our operations. Death, it turns out, was just humanity's latest tactical advantage." As if summoned by her words, a holographic figure appeared in the room. It was Dr. Alex Turner, the scientist who had died sending the final transmission from Proxima Station. "Hello, Madam President," he said with a smile that held no warmth. "I've been waiting to help you make the Kalari pay for what they did." The quantum ghosts, as they came to be called, provided intelligence that no living operative could have gathered. They could access Kalari computer systems without being detected, guide human strike teams to critical targets, and reveal the locations of hidden Kalari fleets. The Kalari fleet at Wolf 359 has 47 ships, Dr. Turner reported during one briefing. "But 12 of them are using our stolen engine designs. I can shut them down whenever you give the order." Commander Sam Parker, now leading intelligence operations with help from the quantum ghosts, discovered something that explained the Kalari's desperate actions. "They're not just afraid of us," he reported. "They're running from something called the Devourer Swarm." The intelligence reports painted a terrifying picture. Ancient mechanical ships had appeared at the galaxy's edge, consuming entire star systems and converting the matter into more ships. The swarm had been moving steadily inward, destroying everything in its path. "The Kalari betrayed us because they needed our technology to fight the swarm," Commander Parker explained. "But instead of asking for help, they chose to steal what they needed and eliminate what they saw as competition for resources." President Williams realized that humanity was facing not just the Kalari, but a threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy. "How long do we have before the swarm reaches inhabited systems?" "Based on their current speed, maybe 2 years before they reach Kalari space," Dr. Turner's ghost replied. "Less if they find a way to move faster." The revelation changed humanity's strategy completely. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival, not just for humans, but for every living thing in the galaxy. Admiral Morrison received new orders as his fleet prepared for the next phase of operations. "We're not just fighting the Kalari anymore," President Williams told him. "We're preparing to face something that could end all life as we know it." "What are your orders, Madam President?" "Continue the operations against Kalari military targets, but start gathering intelligence about this swarm. We need to know what we're facing." Lieutenant Commander Taylor and his enhanced operatives began infiltrating deeper into Kalari territory, searching for information about the approaching threat. What they found was disturbing. The Kalari had been fighting the swarm for months, losing system after system to the mechanical invaders. "They're desperate," Taylor reported. "Their outer colonies are already gone. The swarm is adapting to their weapons faster than they can develop new ones." Captain Rogers, leading another rescue mission, discovered that the Kalari had been trying to evacuate their outer territories, but lacked the ships to save everyone. Millions of Kalari civilians had been abandoned to face the swarm alone. As reports came in from across human operations, a disturbing picture emerged. The galaxy was facing extinction, and the species that had inhabited it for thousands of years were failing to stop the threat. The Kalari made a critical mistake, Dr. Brooks observed during one strategy meeting. "They thought the solution was to steal our technology and eliminate competition. They never considered that cooperation might be more effective than betrayal." President Williams looked around the room at her advisors, both living and quantum. "Ghost, humanity had been betrayed, their people murdered, their trust violated. But they were also the only species that seemed capable of facing the approaching darkness. We have a choice to make," she said finally. "We can let the Kalari face the swarm alone and probably watch the galaxy burn, or we can be the bigger species and help them fight." Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication system from his flagship. "Madam President, with respect, after what they did to our people, why should we help them?" President Williams was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Because if we don't, there might not be a galaxy left to save." The Devourer swarm arrived at the Kalari homeworld 3 days ahead of schedule. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his flagship as massive mechanical ships, each the size of a small moon, emerged from hyperspace around the blue-green planet where billions of Kalari lived. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Kalari government," Captain Lisa Hayes reported. Her voice was tight with tension as she listened to the alien voices pleading for help in broken English. "Please, humans, we know you are there. The Kalari Premier's voice crackled through the speakers. "We were wrong to betray you. Help us save our people, and we will surrender our war criminals for trial." President Williams, monitoring the situation from Earth, had made her decision 3 hours earlier. The human fleet would intervene, but on humanity's terms. "Admiral Morrison, you have permission to engage. But remember, we're not just saving the Kalari. We're sending a message to the entire galaxy." Jake activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. We protect the innocent even when they don't deserve it. We fight monsters even when the cost is high. And we never, ever abandon hope." The human fleet appeared around the Kalari homeworld like ghosts becoming solid. 50 stealth warships materialized from nothing, their quantum shields dropping to reveal sleek black vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. The swarm ships immediately turned toward this new threat. Captain Amy Rogers, commanding the UES Phantom, led the first attack against the mechanical invaders. Her ship dove between 2 swarm vessels, weapons firing concentrated gravity waves that tore holes through their metal hulls. "Their armor is adaptive," she reported, "but it takes time to adjust to new weapon types." Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor and his enhanced soldiers used their psionic abilities to board swarm ships, seeking to understand how the mechanical intelligence controlling them worked. What they found inside was disturbing. The ships weren't just machines, they contained the absorbed consciousness of every species they had consumed. "The swarm doesn't just destroy civilizations," Ben reported as his team fought through corridors filled with mechanical creatures. "It adds their knowledge and consciousness to itself. Every species it has conquered is still alive inside these ships, trapped and forced to serve." Dr. Emma Foster, working with the quantum ghosts of the dead colonists, had been developing a weapon specifically designed to fight the swarm. "If the mechanical intelligence is composed of absorbed consciousness patterns," she explained, "then we can introduce something it has never experienced before." "What kind of something?" President Williams asked. "Human emotions. Specifically, empathy and remorse. The swarm operates on pure logic and survival instinct. It has never encountered a species that chooses to help its enemies." The virus Dr. Foster had created was unlike any weapon ever used in galactic warfare. Instead of destroying the swarm's consciousness, it forced the mechanical intelligence to experience human emotions. For the first time in its existence, the swarm began to feel guilt for the civilizations it had destroyed. Colonel Danny Clark led the ground assault on the swarm command ship, a massive vessel that coordinated the entire invasion fleet. His team of enhanced soldiers fought through waves of mechanical defenders until they reached the central processing core. "Uploading the virus now," Dr. Foster announced from Earth as her consciousness virus spread through the swarm's quantum communication network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the battlefield, swarm ships began to slow their attacks, their mechanical minds overwhelmed by sudden floods of emotion. The consciousness patterns of absorbed species, freed by the emotional virus, began to rebel against their mechanical prison. "The swarm ships are withdrawing," Captain Rogers reported with amazement. "They're actually retreating." But the battle was far from over. As the swarm pulled back, other starships began appearing around the Kalari homeworld. Ships from a dozen different species, all watching to see how humanity would handle victory. "Unidentified vessels, identify yourselves," Admiral Morrison broadcast. To the newcomers, "We are the Zephyrian Republic," came the first reply. "We have been watching this conflict with great interest." "The Crystalline Collective also observes," said another voice. "We wish to see how the humans will use their victory." President Williams realized that this moment would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The other species weren't there to fight, they were there to judge. Admiral Morrison prepared a broadcast to all ships present. Jake activated the fleet communication system on maximum range, ensuring that every ship in the system could hear his words. "People of the galaxy, today you have witnessed something that rarely happens in war. You have seen mercy triumph over revenge." On the surface of the Kalari homeworld, Premier Zexthai, the architect of the betrayal, was being escorted to a human transport ship. Commander Sam Parker had captured him personally, using his enhanced abilities to track down the alien leader who had ordered the deaths of 50,000 humans. "You will face trial for your crimes," Sam told the former premier as enhanced soldiers placed him in restraints. "But you will face it from judges who understand justice, not revenge." The trial was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Kalari War criminals stood before a tribunal composed not of living beings, but of the quantum ghosts of their victims. Dr. Alex Turner, who had died sending the warning from Proxima Station, served as the chief prosecutor. "You killed our bodies," Dr. Turner told Zexthai during the proceedings, "but you could not kill our spirits. We are here to ensure that justice is served, not for revenge, but so that this never happens again." The trial was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Species that had remained hidden for centuries emerged to watch as humanity demonstrated a concept that was foreign to most galactic civilizations: the idea that justice was more important than revenge. Zexthai and his co-conspirators were found guilty of genocide and sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony, where they would spend their remaining years working to rebuild what they had destroyed. It was a punishment that emphasized rehabilitation over retribution. The Devourer swarm, infected by humanity's emotional virus, had undergone a transformation that shocked everyone. The mechanical intelligence that had consumed worlds for thousands of years now experienced guilt and sorrow for its actions. "We wish to make amends," the swarm's collective voice announced through quantum transmissions. "We will use our abilities to build rather than destroy, to create rather than consume." Dr. Foster worked with the transformed swarm intelligence to develop new technologies that could terraform dead worlds and restore damaged ecosystems. The mechanical fleet that had once brought death now brought life to barren systems. As the crisis ended, representatives from species across the galaxy requested formal meetings with humanity. The Zephyrians, who had been fighting the swarm for decades, wanted to learn human military tactics. The Crystalline Collective sought to understand human philosophy. Dozens of other species emerged from hiding, all wanting to establish relationships with the newcomers who had changed the nature of galactic conflict. "We have observed your species for some time," the Zephyrian ambassador told President Williams during their first formal meeting. "We needed to know if you would use your strength to dominate or to protect." "And what have you concluded?" President Williams asked. "That humanity is ready for the next phase of galactic civilization," the ambassador replied. "There are threats beyond our galaxy that require the cooperation of all species. You have proven that such cooperation is possible." Admiral Morrison, now commanding the newly formed Interspecies Defense Fleet, stood on his bridge surrounded by officers from a dozen different species. The human who had watched helplessly as his allies betrayed him now commanded the respect and loyalty of beings from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from deep space, Captain," Hayes reported. "It's coming from outside our galaxy." The message that appeared on the main screen was simple but profound. "We are the gardeners. We have watched your species grow. You are ready." As humanity prepared for first contact with beings from beyond their galaxy, Jake reflected on the Mari journey that had brought them to this point. The Kalari had tried to destroy humanity by taking their allies and stealing their secrets. Instead, they had forced humanity to reveal their true strength, not their weapons or technology, but their ability to choose mercy over revenge, justice over retribution, and hope over despair. The galaxy had learned that when humanity's allies were threatened, humans didn't just fight back. They transformed the entire nature of conflict itself. 2 years after the Kalari betrayal, President Kate Williams stood in the newly built Galactic Council chambers on Proxima Station. The station that had once been destroyed by treacherous allies now served as the center of a new galactic government. Representatives from 47 different species filled the chamber, all looking to humanity for leadership. "The motion to establish the Universal Rights Charter passes unanimously," President Williams announced as she served in her new role as Supreme Arbiter of the Galactic Council. The Charter guaranteed protection for all sentient beings regardless of their species or origin. It was based on human concepts of justice and mercy that had proven so effective against the swarm. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the proceedings from the observation deck. He now commanded the Interspecies Defense Fleet, a massive force made up of ships and crews from dozens of worlds. The human who had once felt helpless watching his allies betray him now led the most powerful military force in galactic history. "Admiral, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim," Captain Amy Rogers reported as she approached. She had been promoted to command of the entire Stealth Fleet Division, overseeing operations across 3 galactic sectors. "What kind of situation?" Jake asked. "The Gardeners are requesting a meeting. They say it's time for humanity to learn about the greater universe." The Gardeners had been watching the galaxy for thousands of years, appearing only when a species proved ready for advancement to what they called higher civilization. Their ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, seeming to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Dr. Rachel Brooks, now director of the Galactic Science Institute, had been studying the Gardner technology for months. "Their ships don't just travel through space," she explained to the assembled council. "They travel through reality itself, moving between different versions of the universe." "Different versions?" President Williams asked. "Imagine that every choice creates a new timeline, a new version of reality. The Gardeners can move between these timelines, selecting the outcomes they prefer. They've been guiding the development of species across multiple realities." The meeting with the Gardeners took place in space near the edge of the galaxy. Their ship appeared as a crystal structure that seemed to shift and change as observers watched it. When the Gardner representative appeared on the communication screen, it looked almost human, but with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "Greetings, people of Earth," the Gardner said. Its voice carried harmonics that touched the listeners' minds directly. "We have observed your species across many timelines. In most realities, humanity destroys itself before reaching the stars. In some, you conquer the galaxy through force. But in this timeline, you have achieved something remarkable." "What have we achieved?" President Williams asked. "You have learned to transform enemies into allies, to choose mercy over revenge, and to build rather than destroy. Most species that reach your level of technology use it for conquest. You use it for protection and creation." The Gardner explained that the galaxy was just one of billions, and that each galaxy faced similar challenges. Species that proved themselves worthy were invited to join the greater community of advanced civilizations that worked to protect and nurture life throughout the universe. "But there are also threats that span multiple galaxies," the Gardner continued. "Ancient forces that seek to consume all life, to turn the universe into empty darkness. We need species like yours to help us fight them." Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor, now leading the Enhanced Human Corps, had been developing his abilities far beyond their original scope. "What kind of threats are we talking about?" he asked. "Entities that exist outside normal reality, creatures that feed on the life force of entire galaxies. The Devourer swarm you defeated was just a small scout force sent by one of these entities." Dr. Emma Foster, working alongside the transformed swarm intelligence, had been developing new technologies that combined human innovation with the knowledge of absorbed civilizations. "The swarm told us there were larger forces behind its creation, but we thought it was referring to another mechanical intelligence. The beings that created the swarm exist in the spaces between realities," the Gardner explained. "They have been consuming universes for longer than most species can comprehend. We call them the Devourers of Light." Colonel Danny Clark, now leading the Galactic Defense Corps, understood the implications immediately. "You're asking us to help fight a war that spans multiple universes. We are offering you the chance to become protectors of all life everywhere," the Gardner replied. "But the choice is yours. You have proven that you value life and justice above conquest and revenge. That makes you invaluable allies in the fights to come." President Williams looked around at her advisors, both living and quantum ghost. Dr. Alex Turner's consciousness, still active in the quantum network, spoke first. "Madam President, our people died believing they were helping to build something better. This is that something better. The decision was made, not by governments or councils, but by humanity as a whole. Every human settlement from Earth to the farthest colonies voted on whether to accept the gardener's invitation. The result was overwhelming. Humanity would join the universal fight against darkness. The transformation began immediately. Human. Technology, already advanced beyond most galactic standards, was enhanced with gardener knowledge that spanned dimensions. Ships that could travel between timelines, weapons that could affect reality itself, and defenses that could protect entire galaxies from interdimensional threats. Commander Sam Parker, now leading intelligence operations for the Universal Defense Force, discovered that many of the species they had been working with were already part of the greater community. The Zephyrians, the Crystalline Collective, even some of the Kalari have been preparing for this moment for generations. Preparing how? President Williams asked. The whole conflict with the swarm was a test. The gardeners needed to know if humanity would choose the right path when faced with betrayal and the chance for revenge. Every species that joins the Universal Defense Force has to pass similar tests. Captain Lisa Hayes, now commanding the rebuilt Proxima Station, oversaw the training of the first mixed-species crews for interdimensional missions. Human officers worked alongside beings from across the galaxy, learning to operate technologies that could reshape reality itself. It's amazing how quickly everyone is adapting, she reported to Admiral Morrison. The humans are teaching the other species about improvisation and creative problem-solving, while they're teaching us about patience and long-term thinking. The former Kalari Premier Zexthai, serving his sentence on the rehabilitation colony, had become an unexpected asset. His knowledge of galactic politics and military strategy proved valuable in understanding how the Devourers of Light had been influencing civilizations for millennia. They work by creating fear and suspicion between species, he explained during one of his debriefing sessions. They turn allies against each other, weakening entire regions of space before moving in for the final attack. Is that what happened with your decision to betray us? Dr. Foster asked. I believe so now, Zexthai replied with genuine remorse. We received intelligence about humanity's rapid development that seemed to come from our own sources, but looking back, it was probably planted by Devourer agents. The revelation that the betrayal itself might have been orchestrated by interdimensional entities added another layer to humanity's growing understanding of the universe. Nothing was as simple as it seemed, and enemies could be created through manipulation as easily as through genuine conflict. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez, working with technologies that seemed to bend the laws of physics, was developing ships capable of protecting entire star systems from interdimensional attack. We're not just building defenses, he explained to his mixed-species engineering team. We're creating weapons that can repair reality itself when it gets damaged. As the first Universal Defense Force fleet prepared for deployment beyond the galaxy, President Williams addressed the people of Earth one final time before stepping down to become the supreme commander of human forces in the interdimensional conflict. 2 years ago, we thought we were alone in a hostile universe, she said to the billions watching across human space. We learned that the universe is indeed hostile, but we are far from alone. We have allies we never dreamed of, responsibilities we never imagined, and a purpose greater than any one world or species. Admiral Morrison, standing on the bridge of the UDS Eternal, humanity's first interdimensional warship, prepared to lead the fleet into unknown realities. The man who had watched helplessly as his allies turned against him now commanded forces that could protect entire universes. All ships report ready, Captain Rogers announced from her position at the interdimensional navigation console. Take us out, Admiral Morrison ordered. Time to show the Devourers of Light what happens when they threaten our friends. As the human fleet disappeared into alternate realities to begin their new mission, the quantum ghost of Dr. Turner appeared, one last time on the bridge of Proxima Station. We did it, he told Captain Hayes with a smile. Our people died believing they were building something better. Now that something better spans all of reality itself. The Kalari had wiped out humanity's allies, but Earth had indeed had other plans. Plans that ultimately led to humanity becoming the protectors of all life across every possible universe, turning a moment of betrayal into the foundation of infinite hope.